Aaron has a picture of Reb Chanina al Shalom. So reminding me, Rabbi Schmidtman from Torres Chaim, he was the bacha. He used to get it out for Nevadik's cost jacket for him from his closet.
Serious?
Yeah, Reb Schmidtman was the bacha. He used to do it. Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty wild. That's pretty wild. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's a way to do it. You put something on you, and then that makes you stop from getting the cost.
You had to wait 20 seconds, whatever, till he got it, whatever it was.
Well, if his brain works, if his cost worked as fast as his brain, so there is a certain rabbi in town, one of the senior rabbis in town, that I don't know if you ever heard the shmooze from him. He has a rubber band that he keeps in his pocket, and he says whenever he starts getting upset, he puts it around his wrist, and that reminds him to not get upset. Right? I'm saying everybody has their thing. Me, I just go on my smartphone and I just distract myself, right? Anyway, all right. Land down. Naftali, it's good to see you here. You know, every time I try and make it earlier, I feel guilty because of you, and now you showed up.
But then I have to make sure I show up, because if I'm going to say something about the early time, I got to make sure I show up when it's early.
Okay, Baruch Hashem. No, but you're against the early time.
I know, but I still, if I can make it, I can make it.
All right.
Okay, back from vacation, so I'm available.
There you go. Okay, so we're on Nun Dalet Amud Beis, right in the beginning of the new parak. So what we've been talking about here is the first half of the Mishnah is talking about adding on to the kesuba, Tosefes kesuba, meaning the kesuba, standard kesuba is 200 for a ba'ula. I'm sorry, a basula, and 100 for a ba'ula for an almana. Right, and then we said if you want to add on, so you could add on. So the lashon of the Mishnah is in Ratza Lahaisif. We're 6 lines up from the bottom. In Ratza Lahaisif, if you want to add on, you could add on wherever you want. So Gemara says Ratza Lichtayv La Loikatani. It doesn't say if he wants, he could write in the kesuba. Why didn't it just say he should write in the kesuba if he wants to put in 10,000 zuz or whatever it is? Ella Ratza Lahaisif. It says that he could add on. Meaning that it's mamish part, exactly, it's a mamish part of the kesuba. It's not like, oh, I'm giving her 200 if she's a psula, or 100 if she's an almana or a grusha, and the rest is a separate thing. No, it's haisif, meaning once you add it in there, it becomes part and parcel, I guess, as part of the kesuba, and it has the same exact dinam. Misayile Rav Evo, Amar Rav Yanai, Dam Rav Evo, Amar Rav Yanai, Tanai kesuba. Kesuba dami. A tanai in the kesuba is mamish like the kesuba, right? So what we mean by tanai is a condition, really, right? If you put an extra condition in the kesuba, so that's mamish like the regular part of kesuba, and a tosefes is a tanai to add on to the kesuba, right? So nafkamina, what's the difference? So the Gemara is going to go through 14 different nafkaminas, meaning nafkamina, not the way we teach it in yeshivish jargon. We teach it is a difference, but here it doesn't really mean difference. It just means that there's 14 scenarios. There's 14 scenarios where the tosefes kesuba is going to have the same din as a kesuba. Okay, so the first couple are easy. We had them already. Let's say she sells a kesuba, right? So we said yesterday or 2 days ago, I don't remember, that a woman can, if she's desperate for money, so she could sell her kesuba. Meaning, and the guy who's buying her kesuba is making a gamble, right? If the husband dies first, he's going to make good money on the kesuba. If she dies first, he's going to lose, right? So it's not. Nobody's going to buy it for that proper price. But I guess unless the guy's if the husband's on a deathbed, then I guess the price of her kesuba goes up, right? But it's a gamble. So if she sells her kesuba, so what about the extras? Does she only have a right to sell the 200, assuming it's a psula, or could she even sell the extras? So we're saying she could sell the extras. And when she's Michael or Ksuba, she's also Michael the extra parts. The Maredes is a woman who rebels, right? So let's say she does not want to sleep with her husband, right? Or she doesn't want to cook or whatever it is. We'll see the chiyuvim that a woman has to her husband. So if she doesn't do it, So we start subtracting from her kesuba, from the price of her kesuba, as we go along, because she's rebelling. So we start subtracting till she ends up with no kesuba at all. So if he added money to the kesuba, that also gets subtracted.
Aaron, can you post from the 8-minute daf if he has a chart about what they, please?
You have a list of the knases and how much?
Yeah.
I noticed.
I didn't know that was an option. Nobody told me that.
I thought top of the line was burning the soup.
Yes, but you don't know how much the reduction is for that.
Your wife
That's what
makes
she-
soup? Yeah.
Don't worry, Parrots is still grilling when she serves the soup Friday night. Anyway, you would never know if she didn't serve soup. Yeah, right? So what's paigemis? If she's paigem in the kesuba, right? Meaning she says that she got some of the kesuba, and the husband said he paid the whole thing. So she can't get the rest of the kesuba unless she makes a shvur. So that would also apply to the extra part of kesuba. L'toivas, and for a woman who asks for her kesuba, like we learned yesterday, a woman could go to Bez and ask for a kesuba, right? Meaning, and let's say she only asks for the extra. She says, I don't need the 200, but give me the extra. Once she asks for the extra, that is considered like she's tiny for a kesuba, and they don't have to feed her anymore. Right? Uloi veres aldas, that's a loaded one, but that's going to be later also. Let's say, it's interesting. It's similar to Meredes, right? Averes aldas means she's not keeping halacha. Usually it means she's not covering her hair and those type of things. So if she's not keeping halacha, so she also she loses her kesuba, right? On to Amud Aleph now. L'shvach, right? Let's say she's given a specific piece of land, right? So and then the price goes up, so she doesn't. The price appreciation, I guess that's what you call it, would not go to her, right? The shvua, if she has to make a shvua, meaning a woman that wants to get her kesuba has to make a shvua. Or there are certain situations at least where she has to make a shvua. Yeah, so she would have to make a shvua. So the same thing, she'd have to make a shvua on the extra part of the kesuba also. Yeah, ula shvius, and for shmita. Meaning this is coming up namish now this month, right? At the end of Shemitah, we all loans are out, right? Because it's Shemitah's Ksafim, it's called, which is why we write a pruzbul, right? Even though there were Rishonim that held you write the pruzbul at the beginning of the Shemitah, but the maaser we pasken, you write it at the end of Shemitah. So Bez Hashem, within the next 3 weeks, everybody's going to be writing pruzbuls. So what about, do you need a pruzbul for if she's owed money for the kesuba? Meaning, is that a loan or is that a loan? Is it not a loan? If it's a loan, then she's going to lose it out. So they need a pruzbul, right? So we're saying Shemitah is not, it does not affect the kesuba, right? And also this Tosefes of the kesuba is the same din, right? Fine. Then I already lost track of what number it was. Let's say somebody who wrote all of his belongings to his kids, right? Which we said we had this also last week. So if somebody writes over all his belongings to his kids, so his kids have to still feed him. But let's say he did that, but he also left over some land for his wife, right? Yeah. So what meaning? Once he gives over a piece of land for his wife, then that's hers, and then that's it. She's done with the kesuba. That takes place of the kesuba, right? And meaning she loses not only her regular kesuba, she also loses the extra part of kesuba. Ligmos min karka, that you can only collect from karka, meaning they only take the kesuba from karka, and even from karka, it's from the cheap part of the karka, right? So meaning when she's owed money, she can only take land. She can't go take his watch or whatever it is. And also from the cheapest land, she gets the cheapest land. And that's the same thing with the extra parts of the kesuba. And as long as she's in her father's house, right? Meaning when almana, if she stays by her father, let's say when she loses her husband, so then she goes back to her father, right? Let's say so then if she go back to her father, then her kids her, I don't know if they're her kids or her stepkids, her husband's kids don't have to feed her because she's by her father, right? But let's say she didn't say anything. She didn't say anything about her kesuba. So how long do we have till they take the kesuba from the estate? So you have 25 years, right? So you have up to 25 years to accept. If she's living by her father, she has 25 years. If she's still living with the kids, then she has unlimited amount of time. When she's living with the father, she has 25 years. So the same thing for the tesefes kesuba, right? Ulu kesuba's b'nin dechrin. That's what we've been learning this week, right? The kesuba's b'nin dechrin again, which is talking about where a man marries two women. So each one, and he has sons from each woman. So each woman's sons yarshin that particular woman, and that's it, because they were afraid a wealthy guy was never going to marry off his daughter because the husband may marry somebody else. And then the Yerusha that should really go to his own grandchildren who should be wealthy, it's going to have to be shared with the children from the other wife who was not wealthy. So that was the Benin Dichren. So the same thing, the same way that the kids from that particular mother get the regular kesuba, they also get the extra from the kesuba. Fine. Okay, so those are the 14 things. So Itmar.
What about these 14 things?
What about them?
What about, we brought them down to do what? The nafkamina between.
Just to tell you that these are 14 cases where the extra parts of the kesuba have the same din as a kesuba. Meaning, let's say the one with if she's in her father's house, so she has 25 years to claim her kesuba, right? Does she also have 25 years to claim the extra kesuba? So yes, only 25 years and that's it. Meaning, basically what it's saying is that you could have thought that when he adds money into the kesuba, that doesn't have a din of kesuba. That just has to him, the husband, being a nice guy, giving his wife extra money, and it doesn't have any of the halachas of kesuba, right? So the Gemara is saying, no, it does have all the halachas, the regular standard halachas of kesuba. So Itmar, we learn kesuba has been in dichren. Now the Gemara now goes through a bunch of Machlokes and pumpbidisa and what do you call it? And machsiya. So Itmar, kesuba has been in dichren. This again, the kesuba's dichren, by the way, is the Aramaic for zocher. The dalet and the zayin are interchangeable. That's what dichren is, right? So benin dichren means male sons. Well, it means male children. Pumpbidisa amri loy tarfa mi mishabdi. You're not allowed to collect the benin dichren from mishabdi. Mishabdi means, again, if the husband doesn't have the money for the kesuba, so what do? Normally, if the husband had debts, so you go to the guy that he sold his last property to and say, there's a lien on the property, you got to give it to me. But the nin dichren cannot collect from that. That they can't do. Why not? Because yarsan tanan, it says yarsan, which again is the word Yerusha, right? Yarsan tanan, and therefore they have to, in the same way that it works with the Yerusha, right? A person does not yarshin his father's properties that he sold to somebody else. Obviously, they're already sold. So the same thing when he's doing the Yerusha with the kesuba, they also doesn't get from the sold properties. But when the people from Mata Machsiya say that you do get from Mishabdim, because why? Because it says Yaspun Tanan. We learned in the Mishnah Yasbun or Yispun, right? Meaning that they're going to take the money. So there's a machlokes, and how do you learn in the Mishnah? Is it Yarsun or Yasbun? So therefore, that would be a big nafkamina whether they're allowed to take from properties that the father sold. The Hilchas, what is the halacha? Like talking from Mishabdi, you're not allowed to take from Mishabdi Yarsun Tanan because it says Yarsun, it says Yerusha. Fine, that's machlokes number one. Machlokes number two, metaltali. Metaltali, so metaltalin means that's the opposite of karka. Watches, cash, all these type of things. So let's say this is metaltalin, and they're there, meaning the father's watch collection is there, right? And when he died, the loy shvua, the woman, the almana, can take the kesuba without making a shvua, right? Meaning, why we said before, we said on the top of this Amud that a woman has to swear that she never got any money from her husband for the kesuba, right? So why? Because we're afraid that maybe he did give her money for the kesuba, and she's not telling us, right? How would she know? Maybe one day he says, here's the money for you for the kesuba, and maybe she's lying now, so we make her make a shvua. right? So the pumpbidisa. So 1 second. So if the metaltalin are there, the watches are there. So then she takes them without a shvua. But let's say they're not there. Then pumpbidisa amri below shvua. She could still take it without a shvua, right? Meaning, because if it's not there, so we're assuming if it was given to her, she how does it go? Yeah, so we're not afraid that that they're somehow disappeared somewhere. I'm not sure why we're not afraid. Maybe she took it. I don't know. I'm not sure why. Maybe we're not sure that she's a ganav. Okay, but whatever it is, if it's so, pumbidisa says if it's not there, so she doesn't make a shvua. But they say no, she has to make a shvua, right? And because maybe the husband did give her money. The ilchasa b'lay shvua and halacha is that she takes the metaltalin if they're not there in front of us without a shvua. Fine. Yichad la'ara ba'arba mitzrinhu. Let's say he gave her land that had four boundaries, right? Meaning he told her this land is going to be yours for the kesuba, and it was a clearly demarcated, I guess that would be the word, of exactly where this land is on the north, south, east, and west side. So then it's below shvua. She takes it without a shvua. Yeah, meaning because if the husband was so specific, exactly which land belongs to her, can't be that he gave her other money for the kesuba, right? Bechad mitzvah, but let's say he only gave one boundary. He just told her, the field, by the road, by that tree, and he only did it on one side. So what about that? That's somewhere in the middle. Pumbidisa amri below shvua. You say she takes it without a shvua. But the machsiya amri b'shvua, no, she has to make a shvua. Ilchasa below shvua, and we say the halacha is that without a shvua, right? We're paskening so far all three of these like pumbidisa, right? The first one was also, yeah, right, like pumbidisa. Fine. Amar le'edim, is that where I left off? Yeah. Amar le'edim, kisu v'chasmu v'havule. If somebody said to an aid, write a star and sign on the star v'havule, and give it to him. Now he's not giving him a star, right? Rashi says what's going on here is that he writes in the star that I'm giving this guy karka, I'm giving him land. But instead of having to go there and make a kinyan on the karka, he says, write a star that I'm giving it over to him. So kanamine, if they did a kinyan, and this has a lot of practical implications, this Gemara. Well, not a lot, but at least for Pesach. Kanamine, if they did a kinyan, so they don't need to go back and ask him again to the guy that's giving the present, are you sure you're giving the present? Because they made a kinyan suda. But like kanamine, but let's say they didn't do a kinyan suda, then pumbidisa amri you don't have to go ask him to make sure that he's giving the present. And the halacha is that you do need to. So this last halacha is like the machsiya. Okay, so just to explain it, basically when a guy wants to, one of the kinyanim in the Torah is what we call a kinyan chalipin. You give the one purchasing or the one taking. And this goes on by every chassan, with the eidim. But the one taking the handkerchief is the one usually giving, and the one that gives the handkerchief, what did I just say? The one giving the handkerchief is the one that's taking, and I'm mixing it up here. I should know this, right? I do this all day with mechiras chametz, right? Okay, so that's what I'm trying to get at. But the mechiras chametz is a little different. So basically the one that's giving will take his shmata and give it to somebody representing the purchaser or the person getting the present, right? And then he takes it, and then memela and he's swapping it out, and that's what's going on, right? So this guy, when he wrote the present to him, if he wrote that he's giving a present and he didn't do this kinyan suda, so then that's where the Machlokes is. Well, you have to go back to him and make sure that he really means to donate it. But if he did it with a kinyan suda, where they took the handkerchief and they gave it to him, meaning the recipient took the handkerchief and gave it to him, and in an exchange he gave him the land, then you wouldn't have to, because that works as some sort of kinyan, which is exactly what goes on by the mechiras chametz. When you go to the Rav, so the Rav takes a handkerchief, or nowadays the yarmulke or a pen, and the Rav is giving it to the guy selling the chametz. The guy selling the chametz takes the sudar from the Rav, and in exchange, he's giving the Rav not his chametz. He's giving the Rav the rights to his chametz. So that's why we do that, because that makes it that much stronger. Now it's not ma'akiv, right? Like here too, we're not saying it's ma'akiv. Here the guy said beferish, he agrees to sell his chametz, so you don't need the kinyan sudar. The Chazon Ish didn't even do it, right? But the Rambam, I think, based on this type of Gemara, is saying that when you do this kinyan sudar, so that makes it that much stronger, right? But it's only going on the shlichus. Either way, so those are the 4 machlokes. 3 we pasken like pumpbidisa, 1 we pasken like machsiya. Fine. Rabbi Elazar ben Azarya. So Rabbi Elazar ben Azarya said in the Mishnah that so that when the man dies when they were engaged before Nisuin, right? Again, we said normally they get engaged, and then there's a year, usually a year, and then they get married. And if he dies, so the basic kesuba of Elazar ben Azarya says she gets. Any tosefes kesuba she does not get, right? So we'll see in the Gemara why this is. So itma Rav Rav Nassan had a machlokes. Chadam Halacha Rav Elazar ben Azarya. One said the halacha is like Rav Elazar ben Azarya, which is that she does not get the extra kesuba money. Chadam ain't halacha Rav Elazar ben Azarya. One says the halacha is not like Rav Elazar ben Azarya. And right, so okay. So now the Gemara says to start the Rav Nassan who damar halacha Rav Elazar ben Azarya. Let's say that it's Rav Nassan, because again the Gemara didn't say who held what. It just said it's a machlokes Rav and Rav Nassan, whether we pass on like Rav Elazar ben Azarya or not. So to start the Rav Nassan who damar halacha Rav Elazar ben Azarya, let's prove that Rav Nassan is the one that said the halacha is like Rav Elazar ben Azarya. The Shamina le Rav Nassan the Azal pasar umdina, because we know from Rav Nassan that he goes with. So an umdina is it's actually a yeshivish word, but an umdina literally means like an evaluation. We can evaluate what the person was thinking and assume that we're going to go with that, right? Because what do you mean? Because the assumption is that the person, the husband, when he adds things into the kesuba, he adds money. The reason why he's adding money is because he loves his wife so much that his wife is going to provide for him, etc., etc. So if he dies, he wants to be able to give her more money, right? But that's only if he actually lived with her. If he never got to live with her, then he never meant for her to have all that extra money. So that's our assessment of his mind, and therefore that's what Rav Nassan is saying, that he doesn't get to keep the extra, and that's what Rav Elazar ben Azarya is saying. So we're going to try and prove from a brisa or a mishnah that Rav Nassan holds that you go with trying to figure out what a man is thinking. Why? Damar Rav Nassan, halacha Reb Shimon Shazuri. The Masukin, halacha is like Reb Shimon ben Shazuri by somebody who's dangerous, meaning he's in a danger, right? Because you have something called a shchiv meira, right? That's somebody who's about to die. So it's the person who's about to die. So he doesn't want, unless he has no kids, he doesn't want his wife to need yibum. So what he can do is he could say, write to get from my wife. So the question is, let's say he only said write to get from my wife. We never said give it to her. So can we assume that he meant to give it to her? That's one scenario. The other scenario is not a shchiv meira, not a guy that's dying, but a guy that's going on a business trip and he wants to write a get for his wife, right? So the question is, can we assume that this guy meant to say write the get and give it to her, right? Because that was the whole point of what he was trying to do here, to make sure to take care of his wife. Or do we say, no, Lamaisi, he didn't say give it to her, so we can't give it to her. So Shimon Shazuri says we can assume that he meant to give it to her, and therefore we can assume that she's divorced and she will not need yibum. That's one scenario. So anyway, so halacha Rav Shimon Shazuri b'masukin. So you see, if Rav Nassan is saying the halacha is like that, that's because we assume that we understand what the man really wanted. Fine. So that's case number one, and then on to Beis. Now, but terumos maaser shel dmai. This really doesn't have anything to do with our sugya, but that's the continuation, where terumos maaser shel dmai is basically dmai is fruits a Haaretz, so they didn't give maaser. There was a chashash that they didn't give maaser. So this case is talking about where this person gave maaser, and then what happened is that there was some dmai that was taken off. They took off from there, but then it got mixed back into his mixture. So now what are you going to do with this? It's not. So it's a mixture. So the whole thing can only be eaten by a kohen. So what the Mishnah is saying is that what you can do in this case, according to Shimon Shazuri, you can go ask the Haaretz who he bought the vegetables from, or the fruit, the vegetables from, and say to him, did you take off terumos maaser? And we'll believe him here. We'll believe him based on, because it's a d'Rabbanan, since most people do take off. So it's only chashash. So we'll believe him for this, and then the guy can eat the mixture. Whatever it is, that doesn't have nothing to do with our Gemara. Either way, we see that according to R Nassan, he is concerned that we are, meaning he holds that we're concerned for whatever the man was thinking, and we can pasken that way, which is why the get would be a good get to the wife, for the person that's dying, even if he didn't say that give it, he just said to write it. So the Gemara asks, so Rav, so then must be that you're saying that if R Nassan is the one that holds that we try and evaluate what the man was thinking, and we go that way, that must be Rav holds it. You don't go with what the man was thinking, and you just judge it the way it is. So for Rav, does Rav not go with based on what a person's thinking? We learn matanas shchimera, which is something that we were just discussing, shekasa kinyan, and he also did a kinyan. Remember the kinyan that we just said on Amud Aleph, the kinyan chalipin, where the recipient gives him the handkerchief, and the giver takes the handkerchief and in exchange gives him the property. So this shchiv meira, the guy that was dying, so normally the din by shchiv meira is that whatever he says goes. Normally you have to do kinyanim, etc., etc. But for a shchiv meira, we let him do that, right? And then let's say he becomes better. So if it becomes better, then it doesn't happen. Meaning, let's say he wants to give, like we said, he wants to circumvent the halachas of Yerusha, right? So what he does is right before his death, he starts giving away all his properties to all his kids, whichever way he wants to give it, to his daughters, his sons, not necessarily the sons in particular order, whatever it is. So he could do that. And if he gets better, then it goes back. But here, what this guy did is he told everybody, and he also did this kinyan, meaning with I don't know if he did it with each person or he did it with one person, where they gave him the handkerchief and he gave back whatever he was giving in exchange. Right, so they did both. So the question is this considered a proper kinyan, in which case it's irreversible, because once somebody is kind of something, he's kind of, or do we say no, he's a shchiv meira and it is reversible if he gets better? So what's the story here? So matna shchiv meira shekasa kinyan. Again, there was two things. He said who he's giving the land to, and he also did a kinyan. So the Bei Rav, Mishmei the Rav Amri, in the yeshiva of Rav, they said in the name of Rav, Arkave Atrei Rachshi. He's riding on two horses, meaning he gets both. He gets the advantage of both. What the Gemara is going to explain in a minute. Shmuel says, I don't know what to do with this. I have no idea what his kavanah was, that he should do it like a shchiv meira or he should do it like a proper kinyan. So Bebei Ram Mishmei Rav Amri Arkavei Atrei Rashi, they said that he's riding on two horses. Harehi Kematnas Bari. It's like the matana of somebody who's healthy. Harehi Kematnas Shchivira. It's also like a present of somebody who's dying. What does that mean? Harehi Kematnas Bari. This is like a matana of somebody who's healthy. Dim Amad Eino Yachalachsavai. Because if he stood up, meaning if he got better, he's not allowed to change his mind, because it's a proper kinyan and he already gave it away. And it's also like the matana of the shchiv meira, she'im amar halveisi leplani, because if he says, my v'hava, that I'm owed money from somebody else, should go to Pliny, halvasi leplani, then the loan goes to Pliny, right? So now this is because the reason why the Gemara is switching to loan is that a kinyan with the sudar, like we were discussing with the handkerchief, that only works for karka and for metaltalin. It does not work for money, right? But it will work the Kinyan Suda will work if he does it through this loan, right? Or it also works for Shimera, right? So therefore, so here, even though it's a money changing hands, the Kinyan Suda will help as a combination with the Shimera. Whatever it is.
When you're being makta halva, you're being makta money per se.
What else is it?
I mean, you don't have actual money. You have a schus to money.
Well, but it can't be. It's okay, but I guess it's not metalton and it's not karka.
I hear. I don't know how to describe it, but it doesn't. I don't. Are you actually being makta money?
I hear you're a money guy, so I don't know. I mean, you, right? I'm not arguing with you on this, but I guess a loan is considered money. Right? Anyway, so whatever it is, so
I think it's a Rav Yitzchak in Bab Machsiya. Rav Yitzchak says that the Dafka by Halva, it's considered a kinyan on money because you don't have to pay back the same exact coins that you got. So you kind of those coins to give back other coins. That's what a halva is. So it is a kinyan on the actual money.
I see you're saying, okay, what it's so that therefore it is money, you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever it is. So you see from this that we're going to go with, he has the advantages of both, of a shchimera and of a regular guy. The Shmuel Amar loya dynamai edamai. I have no idea. He says, Shmuel says, I don't know what to judge this like. Maybe the person who was dying only had in his head to be marking with the star. Vein star la chamisa. Right? Meaning he was giving a kinyan suda with the star, right? But the star doesn't work after misa, right? So he says, I'm not sure if that's if you say the kinyan suda so it works right away, so then it worked. But if it doesn't till later, then it's not going to work because it's going on a star. Okay, whatever it is, what do you see from this Gemara? That Rav holds that we're going with what a person wanted, right? So now you see that Rav holds that, meaning the person is going to want, Rav is saying that the person clearly wanted to have the best of both worlds with the Kinyan Sudar, and he wanted to be like a Shchimera. So therefore you see Rav does evaluate what the person's thinking and paskens like that. So how can you say that in our Mishnah he's not paskening like R Elazar and Azarya? So on to Meralev now, so the Gemara says, Ella tarvayu azli basar umdana. Both of them, both Rav and R Nassan say you do go with an evaluation of what the guy was thinking. Mandamar. So then, how come in the Mishnah they disagree? Meaning, the assumption is that the husband is only adding money to the kesuba if he actually lives with the wife. If he didn't live with the wife, so then he doesn't have that akara satoif to add money. So Mandamar Halacha Shaper, the one that says Allah is like that the extra money doesn't go to the engaged wife, makes sense. It's good. Mandamar ain't Allah, the one that says not Allah. Hochanami oimden daitahu. We try and evaluate his das. And the reason why he wanted to add the money is not because the woman is going to do things for him after they get married. He was doing it so that she should feel so close to him, right? She's thinking, oh, look at that. I'm engaged to this guy and he's adding all this money to the kesuba. Oh, he's a really legit guy. And then that did the job. She did become close to him because of it. So since she knew that in the kesuba, it's a lot more money than he was mechuyev to do. So therefore, he's happy about that, and it had its intended consequence. So therefore, he does have to pay the full thing. All right. So now we're having a machlokes. What is next 10 lines are a Daf Yomi learner's dream. So Yasser Chanina Kamed Rav Yanai v'Kamer Halacha Rav Elazar ben Azarya. Right, so he said, "Allah Azarya, Armalei, Puk Kari Karecha Lebra. Go read your pasuk outside, meaning take your psak and get out of here." That's essentially what it said. Ain't Allah Rav Elazar ben Azarya. Allah is not like Rav Elazar ben Azarya. Amar Yitzchak bar Avdim Mishum Rabbeinu Allah Rav Elazar ben Azarya. Amar Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel Allah Rav Elazar ben Azarya. Rav Nachman Didei Amar Ain't Allah Rav Elazar ben Azarya. V'na'adoi Mishmei the Rav Nachman Amar Allah Rav Elazar ben Azarya. V'avagav the lot Rav Nachman. V'Amar, even though Rav Nachman cursed and said Call Daina the Dain Azarya Hachi Vahachi to have any Dain that paskens like R Elazar and Azarya in this thing, such and such should happen to him, which one doesn't say what, right? Just it was not a good thing. Even though he said that, which is an interesting terminology, right? The halacha lemaisa, right? That we lemaisa we do pasken like we like R Elazar, which the Rashi, the Rashi on the top line says halacha lemaisa. It says hashas kapasik shakach nimnu v'gamru b'nei yeshiva. That's the way it was nimnu v'gamru, meaning it was they counted and it was a vote and everybody. There's I think in the Kedushin Sukkah, I don't remember. There's a Rashi that says that when it says nimnu v'gamru, it's unanimous. So it was unanimous decision. There's no dissenting opinions. That lemaisa, the halacha is like Rav Elazar and Azarya. Okay, short and sweet. I don't know if it's sweet, but it's short. All right, fine. All right, I'll be in touch tomorrow, Bez Hashem, exactly what time. Fine.
Thank you very much.
Okay, sei gesund.
Thank you.
Gershon, you know about Decus in Cleveland by any chance?
No,